How do you turn your hobby into a national business? Welcome to Tea at Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders who make life better, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, the actuary at the Taxevity Insurance Advisory, and when I'm not doing interviews, I help people transfer financial risks with life and health insurance. Our guest today is Michael Marmur. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Pramod, great to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you're here to join us. What do you do when you're not being interviewed?
I'm the founder and owner-manager of Pinpoint National Photography. We're Canada's only national corporate photography company. So I'm running a business when I'm not here being interviewed.
Mm-hmm. And you've got a very interesting background because you didn't start off with a photography business.
That's right.
Where did you start?
Well, I'll try to make a somewhat long story short. I grew up in Montreal, got my MBA and BCom. I'm a certified management consultant, and I spent most of my career doing executive recruitment right out of university, and did very well. I was very successful at it. Moved to Toronto in 1986, but at some point I felt I needed a change, and so I actually started doing some other consulting work around what I call business mediation.
Okay.
And I was very successful at it. I did excellent work, and I still do some of that work. I have a website on it, but I'm not actively promoting it. But I just found it difficult to really build a full practice area around that business, around that consulting practice. Even though the work that I did for the clients were extremely satisfied and got great results. So this was in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. So I was always interested in photography as a kid. In fact, I paid my way through college doing photography. A quick little side story here, okay? How it all started.
Sure.
Is I'm the eldest of 4 children, and so I was always the babysitter. And so as I became old enough to work, 13, 14, I had babysitting jobs. It was great,
Okay.
Get paid to sit and watch TV at somebody's house. Right? So,
And eat their snacks.
yeah. They even let me bring my girlfriend, so.
Wow.
When I was a little older, of course.
Okay.
Anyway, so one time I was probably 13 or 14, I brought my dad's camera and took pictures of the kids, and I don't think today anybody would do that, but the next time I came back and I brought the photos, prints, I made the prints and I brought it to the family, and they very, very happy with the pictures. And a few years later, this was in Montreal, and they were having a bar mitzvah for their son, and they asked if the father called me, said, would I come and take photos? So I thought, fantastic, sure. I showed up with my camera, and I gave him the film at the end of the night, and he paid me $30. This was
Okay.
This many years ago. $30 was probably like now maybe, I don't know, 150 or more, right? And I wasn't expecting that at all. And then I started to get calls from all their friends for all their functions, and so I was doing this all the way through a CEGEP college and university. I had a car. It was a fantastic part-time job, right? And
That's terrific.
so when I finished my BCom and I started, working, right? I basically put down the camera. People were still calling me, and I said, no, I'm just not doing this anymore. So I was working hard all week, and that's when I started working in recruitment. And so I stopped doing the photography. I didn't even do it for my own personal use because I really associated the camera with work. And then, I had my own family and kids, and then so looking for, just working and family and kids and nothing for me. So I thought, I'll get back into photography as a hobby.
Okay.
And I remember my daughter saying, maybe she was like 11 or something at the time, oh, isn't it nice that Daddy has an extracurricular activity? So, I was busy shooting away, and I joined a photography club, which was great, fantastic people, and had a lot of fun. Fabulous photographers, amateurs, but believe me, they were like professionals, like it was the Toronto Guild for Photographic Art, and but they were shooting flowers and landscapes and things, and I really liked photographing people.
Okay.
So at the same time, I had a client who was an SEO guy, search engine optimization. This was 2003 for a travel agency. And so he was competing globally to get the top ranking. And so he taught me, I'll back up a little bit. We talked about, I told him I was doing this little photography thing and that I was doing it as a hobby business, right?
Right.
Because I was in transition from doing executive search to this consulting work. I thought, I'll do something. And I was getting into photography as a hobby, and so I thought, let me just capture a little bit of revenue. I like shooting people, so we asked ourselves, would somebody hire a photographer over the internet?
And in 2003, that's a pretty
was
provocative question.
The internet was very early days of the internet. Photographers did not have websites. You didn't see photography websites, not like today. And so we didn't know the answer even. And so we put up this little website, built a Microsoft Publisher. It was, it was unbelievable. But all of a sudden the phone started to ring, right? When people started email. And I started to get bookings. My wife hated it because I was out on the weekend shooting weddings. It was me shooting.
Right, okay.
And but I followed the same model I did when I was a student, because I didn't really want to meet with people. And I didn't want to deal with selling a print. So I basically, it was the film days. It was very early days of digital. So I was charging $100 an hour back then, which was a decent rate for myself. And I would give them the film at the end, or I'd make the prints and give them the negatives and the prints, and they loved that, right? So it kept evolving and growing, and then all of a sudden photographers started to contact me. And
so why would photographers contact you?
They found me, I don't know, they found me online. I guess they found me online, and they thought maybe I could have some work for them.
Okay.
They were looking for work, right? And I was getting too many calls from clients. I couldn't do all the work.
Okay.
Right? So I started to book them out. And all of a sudden, this thing was like taking on a life of its own, right? I was trying to, I remember I had this home office, and one desk was my wife's desk, where I had the photography business, and the other desk was my consulting desk. And I kept, I kept getting pulled to the photography desk, I said, no, I'm building this. This is just a hobby thing, I'm building a consulting practice, right?
Okay.
And so, but I kept gravitating to that desk, right? And then people around me started saying, well, why? Even my accountant said, just focus on this photography business. Like, it's growing. It was growing really crazy, right? And so that's what I did. I said, okay, I'm going to turn it into a real company. And from that day on, I stopped shooting. I put down the camera and I never picked it up again.
Okay.
I never shot an event since then or did any, and we started booking out photographers. And so started booking out photographers, and we were doing weddings and bar mitzvahs and social events. We really weren't doing any business photography at all. And I stopped shooting, and we were working locally in Toronto pretty much. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Montreal, and I had a photographer call me from Montreal, and she'd been living in New York City for 5 or 10 years. She went back to Montreal where she grew up, and said, well, would you represent me here in Montreal? So I thought, well, I'm not meeting clients anyways. The whole way we were working really, it didn't matter where I was. So I thought, let's try this. So we started booking weddings in Montreal. And that's how it started, working outside of Toronto, essentially, which eventually became national, right? So all the processes and refined it. And then at some point, I felt it was time to, we were starting to do some corporate work, because I really felt if I was going to make it a full-time business, I should leverage the fact that I really I know how to deal with business people, right? Not with individuals who are hiring for weddings. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's very good business. But I thought that I knew how to deal with marketing and communications people and event people, and I had something to offer. So we started doing some corporate events and headshots, because I thought that was something that somebody could. Stock photography was very, very popular by this time. It was really, digital was very strong, and stock photography was, hugely being used by ad agencies and by marketing people. But the niche that we occupy is people can't use stock. You can't use stock to take a portrait of a person. It has to be the person.
Yes.
If you're having an event and it's an awards ceremony or a gala or a conference, you can't use stock photography. The whole reason you want a photographer, you want images of what happened, right? So we built. So about 5 years ago, went through a whole rebranding exercise and changed the name of the company to hired a firm, and they came up with Pinpoint, which means to focus, right?
Oh, it does. Okay.
Right.
I was thinking more of a pinhole camera.
Yeah. Oh, people think pinhole camera, and so Pinpoint National Photography changed the name from Special Event Photography, which was what called. Okay. And then we stopped doing weddings, like cold turkey.
And that's where you started. So you completely stopped that.
We stopped it completely. Yeah. Stopped doing. Yeah. We started off doing weddings and completely stopped. And even my wife said, why are you going to stop doing that? You're making money from it. And it's not repeat business, right? And I felt if I was I'm really building a business. It wasn't Michael Marmur, the photographer. I'm building a photography company. Okay. I needed something that was repeat business and something that was scalable and repeatable. And wedding business is not. It's based on pretty much a sole contributor who's and they may have a studio around it, but it's not repeat business. You might get referrals to another couple getting married, to another bride, but you're not getting more work from that bride. You might get to do a family portrait of their children, but you're not going to get a second wedding from them. Well, hopefully, hopefully you're not getting. Hopefully you're not getting a second wedding from. Although you might, right? Like we would do. So we stopped doing it. Stopped doing weddings. Just stopped, right? And I mean, sometimes a client will call us, a bar mitzvah client will call us, whether we did one or two of their children as a third child, and so we'll do it. But those are very, like, one a year maybe now. It's just not what we do. So, and then it started to evolve from Montreal to other cities, right? We started to expand, and then I guess and then, we started working, we probably worked in every city across Canada. So I don't know if that I think that answers the question.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You started off at a time the internet was quite fresh, and you evolved your business from something that was originally a hobby, and then it became a national business. What sort of things have you learned along the way? Were there some principles or lessons?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, maybe just quickly of how I did it, because, and I'll talk about the principles and lessons. I mean, how it was the early days of the internet, as we said. 2003 when I really started from cold. And at one point I had 18 websites. And in a post-Google world, when they changed the algorithm, and they don't want you to do that, they want you to have one brand. So now we just have one website.
Sorry, but why did you have 18 websites?
Well, what I was really doing, I didn't really know it at the time, right? It was really a black hat technique. If you think of the old Western movies, cowboys movies, the black hat and the white hat, the guy wearing the white hat, the cowboy was the good guy, and the black hat was the bad guy, right? So the term black hat technique, and I didn't realize it, right? But I was doing things that today, Google would shut you down. They would, but everybody who was on the internet and knew anything, that's what they were doing. So I had 18 websites because I have a website for every city across Canada, right?
Okay.
Right, so I had Calgary event photography, Ottawa event photography, Montreal event photography, and even multiple websites from each city, right? And then, so we were getting, tremendous amount of traffic and business from the internet. People would find us across Canada.
Okay, so I could be doing a Google search and I look at page 1 and I say, I don't want to go with the first company, I'll go with number 3, but that's still you.
Yeah, for some keywords, we would actually not hold just the top position. We'd hold the top 5 positions.
Okay.
And it's kind of embarrassing to say this, there were times, not that often, it would happen that we'd get an email request for a quote. Right. And it would come from 3 different websites. So this one person was asking for an inquiry, and they'd send it to 3. They thought it was 3 different companies.
They're shopping around.
So you can see why I'd say it's like black hat.
Yes.
It's not really, we didn't plan to do that. That's just what happened, right?
Right.
And but once the client would reach us, we would give honest quotes and very consistent pricing, and deliver excellent work and high quality of service and solid work. So that was just the way it was. Now it's changed. You can't really do that in the same way. But that's how we built the business, right? And some of our biggest clients found us online, and they continue to find us online, okay? Because we offer a very unique service, and not everybody knows about it. Like we don't really have a competitor. The only, there's one other company, but they're press photographers.
Okay, can you just tell us what's unique about your business?
The one unique, there's tons of photographers out there.
Right.
You're a photographer. You have your I don't know if you have an iPhone or an Android or whatever you have, and you're pointing your camera on vacation. Yeah. Everybody's a photographer.
But no one's going to pay me.
Yeah, exactly. But you look at even at weddings, you'll see so many people with cameras and people. So, what's unique about us is that we make it very easy for companies or organizations that are doing things in multiple locations. In Canada, we operate only in Canada. So, for example, we might have an association. And they have a conference. One year it's in Quebec City, the next year it's in Calgary, then it's in Montreal, then it's in St. John's, Newfoundland. I'm thinking actually a very specific client. And they come to us because they know that we understand what they want, and we will assign our local photographer to do the shoot. And so they don't have to re-explain to us. They don't have to worry that we are not going to know what they want, right? That's one example. Another example might be where we have some banking client where they have an awards ceremony, and it's taking place in multiple 6 cities or 8 cities or 10 cities.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes, different days, or could even be the same day. Doesn't matter. And we manage all of that, right? So we make it easy. We're one point of contact. They send us the list of the dates, right? They let us know what's required, and then we manage everything with the photographer. And they say one invoice, one point of contact. The photographer, sends us the files. They're not, it's not like 10 photographers are sending 10 sets of files. So our editor works on the files, and they have one point of contact. So if there's problems or issues, we take care of it, right? And So that's what it is. We make it easy for our clients, right?
And that looks like a very interesting niche that you've found, because I can see opportunities for situations like that. You're simplifying a lot of work for the companies that hire.
For headshots, right? For business headshots, we do that. So sometimes they want to have a uniform look across Canada, right?
Right.
So we'll shoot on a green screen, and then we'll digitally insert the background. So whether the person was photographed in Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver, right? Sometimes we do for magazine, professional magazine is one we do for lawyers, and so they need shots of corporate counsel. We did for, can I mention names of companies? It doesn't matter.
It's up to you.
Did one for for corporate counsel for Bank of Montreal, so it's the senior counsel, and for Air Canada. Well, Air Canada is in Montreal. Bank of Montreal is here in Toronto, right? This is the senior legal counsel. And so we have two different photographers. There's no need for travel, right? We give the instructions, we give the guidelines. And when it appears in the magazine, the photos are there, they look great, the client's very happy. They don't have to explain everything to the photographers, they know what they're going to get. And so it works really well. And we do that for another client that's based in Edmonton. And they do storyline on patient safety. It's distributed across Canada. And I think it's 100,000 will get distributed to hospitals. And so they have physicians or nurses or to the health ministers from across Canada. There's 10 or 11 people that have to be photographed. Different cities and every nook and cranny of Canada. Instead of them hiring 10 or 11 photographers, they hire us. We engage the photographers. We manage those and give the direction. We act as somewhat as the art director and make sure that the end result is going to be right. They won awards actually for their magazine. And part of it was because of the photography. So
Yeah. So what you've done is inspiring and also impressive. What lessons have you learned?
Well, it's not easy.
Okay.
It's not easy, It's not easy to build any business. It's not easy, right? And it's a lot of hard work.
Is there a way that someone could maybe get started, or that you got started?
Yeah, if you think about a few things, I think the first thing, is to think about who you are, really. Whether you're, I'll give you the example, if you're a videographer, you're a house painter, you're a physician, you can see big clinics, or you can see construction companies, and so they all may have started off small at one time. Everything started off, not unless they bought, they got very large by acquiring. At some point, they were one person, right?
Yes.
That started off, right? Maybe they're 100 years old, but at one time it was, the Eaton's department store, which no longer exists. It was one guy who had a store, right?
Yeah.
And
with the name Eaton.
Yeah, and he built a business across Canada. Okay, it's generations further on destroyed it, unfortunately, sadly, but he built a business, right? And how did that happen? Well, so I think the first thing is to know who you are and what your strengths are, and if you're a house painter, and you want to build a business, there's certain skills that you need, and maybe you shouldn't be building a business. Maybe you're a master house painter. So I think first of all, know who you are, right?
Okay.
Like I knew for myself that I love photography. And I'm very, very good at it. Like the event photography, I'm as good as any of our photographers across Canada. I could do the work. I'm not necessarily the best portrait photographer. I never had that training. I know what I'm looking at, what I like. But for event photography, I know what I'm doing, right? And but I knew I didn't want to be a full-time event photographer. It's just not me, right, to be doing that full-time. And that's why when friends said, "Oh, turn it into a business," I said, "No, I don't want to do that," right? And they said, "No." Or they said, "Yeah, turn into why don't you make this full-time?" I said, "No, I don't want to be a photographer." They said, "No, as a photography company." So I stopped. That's when I put down the camera. So.
And was it difficult for you to put down the camera?
It's very difficult. And maybe that's the first kind of step of saying, to build a business, I had to strip off all the tasks.
Okay.
Right? To essentially where I'm not doing anything except running the company, and maybe one day sell the company, or I'm just or having it run, or me not spending much time at all. So the first thing I did was, I'm not shooting anymore, right? So I had to have photographers doing the shooting. So there's a lot around that. Make sure they know what they're doing, vet them properly. They're going to show up, they're representing the company. It's not only when you're doing event photography, it's not only the images, the final images, it's how you behave on site. You're at an event.
Right.
And your presence is very important in the way you make people feel. That's part of that they have a good experience. So that was the first thing I did. And I remember I talked about that website, and I remember very, very clearly because the first website had a picture of me holding a camera, and I had a nice look on my face. I had been actually at an outing, a photography outing up in Algonquin Park, and another photographer took a photo of me.
Okay.
Right? And so I was very relaxed, and it was just a great picture, and I had this great front and center on the website. So people probably visited the website and said, hey, I could deal with that guy. I'd like to have him at my wedding, right?
Right.
And I think I could trust that guy.
Uh-huh.
So all of a sudden when I said, okay, I'm not shooting anymore, I couldn't have that picture there anymore.
Good point.
Right? Because I'm not going to be, and it had the language like, I'm going to be your photographer. So when I took down that picture, I thought, maybe nobody's going to call. Nobody's going to email. Maybe no one's going to want us. But that's not what happened, right? So I worried about that, right? At that step. So each step of the way, as I was doing things, right? Like I wondered. So people have to think about, first of all, who they are, what they want to do. Do you want to, build your business, build a business, or do you want to be an individual contributor and be an expert at what you do? That's also okay, right? Maybe you're that house painter and you're the very, very best. Well, keep raising your rates, right? And but no matter what you do, I think the important thing is not to do the things that are a waste of time.
Okay.
That you are not. Okay. For example, bookkeeping and accounting. And many business people, whether you're that house painter, or whether whatever you are, or whether you're a lawyer, right? Like you don't want to be doing your own books. Just as an example, it's an easy one. Get a bookkeeper. Yes. Get a bookkeeper, right? The time that you could be spending doing that, you could be focusing, thinking about your business, either working or taking vacation time. And so slowly you start to think about what are the things that you shouldn't be doing. And that's what I did as I built the business. I did everything at first. I did from shooting to burning the DVD, sending them out, like everything,
Okay.
And so I know how I did every task, but slowly. So now I have an editor. The files go to him, right? He reviews them. He color corrects them. He puts the DVDs. He sends it out. Like that's it. I did it before, but I can't do everything. My job is really to grow the business now. Right? So that's the second thing, right? First is know who you are, what you're trying to do. The second,
you can't do everything.
You can't do everything. And the third is, if you're not going to do everything, and you're not just going to be if you're not going to be an individual contributor, like for me, when I'm hiring other photographers, I have a director of client services, I have an editor. There has to be a process that everybody knows about.
Okay.
There has to be a process, because it's not like everything's in my head. I can't always have people asking me. We have about 30 photographers active across Canada. They have to know what to do. Like, it sounds like a simple thing. Yeah, how do they get the information? How do we get the information from the client? Make sure it's all in sync, right? So we have a whole process around how we confirm, how do our confirmations. Like, it's a simple step, right? We have this document that we send to the client as we're building the whole project, right? As we're talking to the client, we have all the information. We send them a confirmation document, which they review. They fill in all the blanks. And then it goes. The updates are done in our database, and then extraction of that goes to the photographer, right? But then how do they send us the files? So there's a whole process around that. Like there's a lot of minutia. How do they name the folder? So all the process around the business has to be there so people know what to do.
And also what's really good about having the processes is that at some point you can then sell the business because it's not dependent on you knowing all these little details.
Either sell the business or be able to go away, right?
Yes, vacations, yes.
Right, like as a business, and no matter who you are, you can't just work all the time. Well, you can, but eventually why are you living, right? I mean, you want to have some fun, right? So, I don't usually check email when I go on vacation. I was away 2 weeks in June. I literally did not check my email once.
Wow.
Now, if you tell a business owner that, they'll kind of go into a cold sweat.
Yes.
Right? But my email is forwarded to, not just forwarded, like the whole count was under control of a director of operations, right? And so she received all my email, and she would text me if there was a problem. I know she would contact me. She would call me or text me and ask me, and then she could always forward me the email. But I wasn't checking email every day, right?
Okay.
So the business was running without me. Right? The business was running. Not like everything stopped. Events were still being photographed. New clients were being responded to. Inquiries being quoted on. And that's because we have a process in place. It's not like people have to call me, what do I do now? What do I do now? Right?
Yes.
The time they'd have to call and say, what do I do now, is when there's a problem.
Yes, right? The exceptions.
The exceptions. And just like in every business, we have problems at times. Things happen, right? And customer dissatisfied or something went wrong. And so, I like to say that this difference between an excellent company, a good company, and a superb company is how you handle those problems. So I always do my very best to pay attention. And I, of course, jump in. And I'm always there in the background anyways as the owner of the company, and let clients know that. So that's the times. It's the exceptions, right? Otherwise, things should just run. So then it's a business that's either sellable, right? Or I can, if it becomes a retirement plan, I don't have to, if I'm not working. Right now I work, very full time in the business. But at some point in the future, it could be that I don't, right?
Yes.
So I think each person has to think about what they want, as I started off by saying, right? Like maybe,
Yes.
It depends on your age and how long you plan on working, or what do you see for the business, right? And so it is possible to do. It's not easy. And I think it's important to be realistic about, and many business books or best practices will tell you this, that most people underestimate how much money they need to have in the bank when they're starting off. Because at first, when I started, and I remember my father-in-law saying this, I started to send out other photographers. Well, guess what? I wasn't making as much money, right?
Right.
Here I'm paying out all these people, and he was right? But as I, they have more critical mass, then there's more and more people photographing. So then I started to make money again, right? But I think it's important to make sure that you have that ability, right? And whether it's a partner or a spouse that's working, or whether you have some other source of income, whether you've accumulated some cash to be able to fund the times where as you're paying other people to do tasks until the money starts to increase, you need to be prepared for that in terms of business planning.
Yeah, you've got a great background and you've given us a lot of practical tips. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Interesting. Best way to people reach me. First of all, I'm very available. By phone or by email. I guess the fastest probably way is just to Google my company, right? It's Pinpoint. And you look Pinpoint Photography. It's actually Pinpoint National Photography. I can give my phone number.
If you like.
Sure. It's 416-221-3773. That's the local number. And toll free, it's 1-877-245-3859. And email always works. I'm Michael@pinpointnationalphotography.com. Bit of a mouthful, but that's what it is.
Thanks for dropping by, Michael.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?